Welcome to the G5 High Ground, next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. For watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be heading over to the American Athletic Conference and taking a look at the South Florida Bulls, who finished 7-6 last season and capped off their season with an exciting 5-overtime victory in the Hawaii Bowl, a record that stood for probably less than 24 hours before Toledo took it down. They wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their spring game on April 26th. We have a special guest joining us today. He is a journalist. He is a historian. He is a USF graduate. He loves sports, music, and people. And as Plato once said, storytellers rule society. He is a senior writer and for football and basketball radio talent for South Florida Athletics. He is Joey Johnston. Joey can be found on X at Joey Johnston 813. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Man, thanks for that great introduction. It's can't wait to make my G5 Hive debut. I love the concept. I love what you guys are doing, and hopefully I can give some good information. I know for sure I'm going to dig deep into what you guys have done already, because I know you got a treasure trove of info on all the G5 teams, and I can't wait to learn a little bit more about all the teams in the American that you guys have dug into already.
Well, before we get to know the Bulls, we need to get to know you. You said it. This is the first time. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been covering South Florida football?
Well, I was there from the beginning. I used to work at the Tampa Tribune, which unfortunately in 2016 closed as a newspaper. And since then, I've been on my own with my own business, essentially doing what I've done all my life, writing and broadcasting. But I was there covering the feasibility meetings in the early 90s when they were talking about starting football. I was there when they approved the program and had a season without games, just practices, and certainly was there the night of 1997 when the Bulls defeated Kentucky Wesleyan 80-3 in their first game ever before a sold-out crowd at the old Tampa Stadium, the Sombrero. So I've been able to, in one form or fashion, see all the highs and lows this program has to offer. USF football now going into year 29. And I have been there for pretty much all of it, the highs, the lows. It's a very interesting program, the way it started, the way it built quickly. It's had great highs, it's had some big lows, but I do think it is on the way back to being a consistent force in the G5 without question.
Well, moving over to some South Florida Bulls football, and let's start with the offense. For those not familiar with the South Florida offensive style, how would you describe it?
Very, very fast. And that's what Alex Golish, the head coach, is known for. He was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee back when the Vols were one of the most high-powered offenses in the country. We're talking 2021 and 2022, that era, 2023, or actually 21 and 22 is what we're talking about, when they beat Alabama in that unbelievable 52-49 game. But Alex Golish came in and they play fast. They get a lot of plays in. They like to wear out the defenses if they can. I mean, everybody likes to play up tempo, right? Almost everybody in the country does that now, but these Bulls do it at a higher rate than you're used to. I mean, I'm the sideline reporter, and man, keeping up with their offense when it's clicking is a chore, and you cannot blink or else you can miss something. So. They like to operate fast, and if they're moving the chains with first downs, they can wear you out. So they're a formidable force to reckon with when things are clicking.
Well, Joey, should we wear out our guests here? And let's get started with the offense, and let's get started with the position that it all starts, and that's the quarterback. Last offseason, there was a lot of excitement around Byron Brown. However, Brown suffered a leg injury when he was sacked by a member of Tulane during their September 28th matchup. Bryce Archie then came in for relief the remainder of the season and is back for 2025. Now, while Israel Carter saw some playing time in 2024, he's moved on to Norfolk State. Byron Brown saw 2 snaps in the Hawaii Bowl, but it sounds like pain tolerance may have been an issue. What can you tell us about Brown's injury and how his road to recovery is going?
Well, he was not having a great start to last year. I think even he would admit that, but it wasn't Byron Brown standards by any means. But at the Tulane game, he suffered the leg injury and had to be taken out, and we never got a full read on when he was expected back. As it turned out, it was a pretty serious injury, and the reason he came into the Hawaii Bowl was Byron Brown got a bloody nose, and he had to sit out a play, and then there was another, like, a special play they put in where Byron Brown came in to do some trickery, but it wasn't like he really played too much, so it was kind of a lost season for the most part. When Byron got injured in the Tulane game, that made them 2-3, and then they would lose to Memphis to go 2-4. So they were really behind the eight ball, and things did not look good, especially without Byron Brown. But they found there was life with Bryce Archie, but they are certainly looking forward to the 2023 version of Byron Brown coming back. And if that occurs, you're going to have a guy that can put up tons of yards, can run the ball, can really stretch a defense. Byron Brown had a magnificent season in Golish's first year, and maybe he would have been great last year. We'll never know, but he was not off to a great start. But certainly you can't deny the kid has a lot of talent, and I think he's going to play in the league one day, somehow, some way. He's a big, rangy kid that's put on a lot of solid weight. I think he's a pro prospect for sure.
For those not familiar with Byron Brown's game, how would you describe it?
He's a great runner, first of all, and I think the way you can gauge Byron Brown's success is his ability to know when to run and when not to run. And I think early in his career, I don't think he knew the line there well enough. He would bail out on plays too early and take off, and a lot of times he would turn nothing into something. But he needed to learn how to be more patient in the pocket and get the ball into the hands of his playmakers, and he did a much better job of that in the second half of 2023 and last year as well. So he's a guy that's a loosey goosey kind of athlete, very elusive in the pocket. He's got a really nice arm. He can throw. He can make all the throws. He has shown the ability to throw a good deep ball. So, but his dual threat ability is the biggest thing. Is you're just not sure this guy could run for an 80-yard touchdown. I mean, he's that kind of an athlete, or he could throw for an 80-yard touchdown. And the biggest thing about him, and Coach Golish will tell you this until you're blue in the face. This is a tough kid, one tough hombre, as they say, and the players love him. The offensive linemen love this kid because he will keep at you. He will keep coming, and you're going to have to really work to keep this kid down. He is a talented runner who can run around you, but he'll run over you as well. So his dual threat ability is the biggest thing in my eyes.
Was he available in spring practice?
He was. He had a normal spring practice, but he had a hamstring injury that came up right before the spring game, and they opted not to play him, which again adds to the conspiracy theory, I guess, of people wondering about Byram's injury. So but maybe part of that's by design. Just keep the mystery going into fall camp and the fall season. But the times I watched practice, Byram appeared to be full go. He's out there working like normal right now in the off season. So I believe he is 100% and will be ready to go in the fall.
Well, given the injuries, let's just say he's 100%. He's good to go. Do you see Golish, calling up less run plays for him and using the running backs more, or do you think we'll still see Byron Brown being a dynamic runner like you mentioned in describing his game?
I think he'll still be a dynamic runner. I think the biggest thing will be Byram's ability to commit to the pass and stay in the pocket and hold it to the last second without bailing out on the play. And again, like I said, he's gotten a lot better at that. They're gonna call a lot of runs for him. That's just part of the game. But his ability to to deliver the ball from the pocket and not just freelance and get happy feet is his growth as a quarterback so far. So you will see him run 12 to 15 times a game. I would estimate. A part of that will, let's say half of those are called runs, and the rest might be him making something out of nothing. But to shut down his running ability would be counterproductive, because that's really a big part of what makes him a special player.
Well, I feel like I need to ask this just in case, because I didn't think I was going to need to know it last year. But for those not familiar with Bryce Archie's game, how would you describe it?
I say Bryce is more of a pocket passer, more of a conventional quarterback. He does have the ability to run in a pinch, but I wouldn't say that's his strength. The thing is, when Bryce took over, he started the game against Memphis, and that put the Bulls at 2-4, really a dangerous position. But the Bulls ended up, going to a bowl game, finishing 7-5. So Bryce Archie down the stretch did some good things for this team. He led them to comebacks against UAB and Florida Atlantic. Those two spring to mind immediately. He also had some great performances and some routes. He made some big mistakes at times, which I think was a product of his inexperience. I remember specifically against Navy, him from the sidelines. I don't think I audibly said it, but I certainly thought it. I said, no, 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 do not throw that ball into double coverage against your body, Bryce. But he did it anyway, and they intercepted the pass. So he's a good kid. He's also a baseball pitcher. He plays both sports. Might be a guy that's going to sign in baseball. He throws in the mid 90s as a pitcher. But he's a valuable asset. I mean, again, if Byron Brown is not healthy or goes down again, they got a guy that started 7-8 games in Bryce Archie. So I would classify him as a very credible backup quarterback who can start, who can play, who can win games. So he's a good guy to have around.
Well, moving on to the running game, in 2024, the staff deployed a three-back rotation between Kelly Joyner Jr., Naquan Wright, and Teron Keith. That trio has graduated along with Josias Young. That means the Bulls will be looking to replace 324 attempts, 1,776 yards, and 28 touchdowns on the ground. This room returns Alvon Isaac and Jalen Johnston as guys who saw snaps in 2024. However, they only combined for 12 rushes for 83 yards and a touchdown. They also added Cartavius Norton from Charlotte, and after the spring, they brought in Sam Franklin from Oklahoma. How did this running back room look in the spring?
This is my biggest concern of this team, is the lack of experience and depth in this room. And this was a room that was packed with experience and depth for not only last year, but the season prior. We'll see how it shakes out, but I don't have the great confidence that they have what it takes to run like they want to. Now, you mentioned Sam Franklin and maybe some other additions. Maybe it'll shake out, but this was the one area in the spring where I felt it was a little bit light in terms of additions and depth. Now, somebody could come out of nowhere. Somebody that I'm not expecting could be a major player here and bully for the Bulls if that's the case. But right now, I'm not seeing it. I'll have to see it in the fall. And this. If you want a question mark, this is your question mark about the Bulls right now.
I know he didn't participate in the spring game, but what can you tell us about Kawan Powell's injury and his road to recovery?
Yeah, it's just been a hard road back for him. I'm not quite sure what his status is, but if he can come back and be healthy, he's certainly shown the ability to be kind of a pile driver, a guy that can run in the middle and get you 4 or 5 yards, a crack. He would be a valuable piece and would really help my outlook on this running back room, but I just don't have the certainty of his availability and his health. But he's a guy that if he can come back, he will add a level of experience, and that would really help the Bulls. But I'm not sure we can count on K1 at this point.
Do you think this staff, by just nature, wants to use a rotation, running back by committee, or do you think they would prefer to have a workhorse back?
In the past, it has definitely been the committee. That's been the philosophy, and we've seen that. Last year, Kelly Joyner, Naquan Wright, Teron Keith all had touches. They would go through phases where they would, run a guy for a couple series and go to the next guy, then go to the next guy, and obviously you keep a guy fresh that way. So philosophically, to this point, it has definitely been a committee approach versus a workhorse approach. And I know Naquan Wright at times maybe felt like he wasn't getting the ball enough. He's a guy that could have been more of a workhorse, but they just liked keeping things versatile and keeping people guessing. So my guess would be, even though we're not quite sure of all the players in the backfield, my guess is they will continue to use that committee.
The running backs that were there in the spring, can maybe you tell us what they excel at, or what maybe their skill set lends itself to doing better? Is there a guy that maybe looks like a goal line back, or a guy that looks like the best pass catcher of the group, for instance?
Yeah. Now, I guess you have to start with Cartavius Norton, who is a transfer from Charlotte, who actually began his career at Iowa State. He looks like a very productive guy potentially for the Bulls. I don't know if he's 1,000-yard guy or not, but he's a guy that I think is going to get the lion's share of the carries. Looks like a guy that could turn on the jets and get to the edge, and also go up the middle and power it. So I think he's going to be the lead dog, regardless of how many backs they use. Alvon Isaac, a young kid, has a great spark, a great get off, and he just doesn't have any experience. But if this kid gets some experience and can get into the second level, he can make some big things happen. He comes from a small school in Florida, and maybe wasn't as highly regarded, and certainly is not a big guy in stature, but he's just one of those guys, man. If he can make you miss, he can go the distance. All of this remains to be seen in games, but he has a ton of potential. Jalen Johnston, another guy that has a bit of a juke to him, and again, just not a lot of experience. So that's kind of the buzzword in this backfield. Sam Franklin from OU. Don't know a lot about him to date, but the fact that he signed with OU obviously is going to catch your eye. So we'll see what they have in store for him for the fall. But it's kind of a situation, I think, where like all jobs are open, all roles are open. I mean, I do expect Cartavius Norton to be a guy that's going to get a lot of carries. Beyond that, not sure. I'd like to think Alvon Isaac could be a guy that could surprise some people, but haven't seen it yet. Haven't seen it with a lot of these guys. And Sam Franklin, looking forward to learning more about him.
Realizing it's early, it's here early June, but if you had to guess today who gets the first running back carry against Boise State, who would you pick?
Byron Brown. No, Cartavius Norton would be my guy in the backfield that I think will be the starter, and will be the guy that would get the carries. But Byron will carry it early at some point. He'll fake it to Cartavius Norton and go around the edge. But Cartavius Norton is a guy that when he went to Iowa State, some of the coaches and the strength coach knew him. They were at Iowa State at the time. Golish had some ties to Iowa State as well. So in addition to playing against him at Charlotte, they felt like they had a lot of intel on this kid in terms of not just his talent, but how he is as a person and what kind of a guy he is in the locker room. So I know they are very high on what he can bring on and off the field. So if he's that kind of guy and can produce on the field, then the Bulls will have helped themselves a lot in that transfer portal.
Well, let's move over to the wide receivers, and we saw their top two receivers graduate, Mr. 1K himself, Sean Atkins, and Michael Brown-Stevens. This group also graduated Joshua Hardman, while Abdur Rahim Yassin is in the portal. Sean Atkins will be a big loss for this team in 2023. He became the first USF receiver to get 1,000 yards in 2024. He accounted for 113 targets, 80 receptions, 813 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This room returns guys like Joshua Porter, Kayshawn Singleton, Jaquan Smith, and Brandon Winton. The staff also brought in Chaz Nimrod from Tennessee, and after the spring, they brought in Tyler Williams from Minnesota and Mudia Rubin from Stanford. What are your expectations for this room heading into 2025?
Well, I think it's going to be a strength. I think there's a ton of talent in this room, a ton of returning talent, and also some really intriguing newcomers. I love Keyshawn Singleton. I think he's going to be a big star in the American. He showed signs of that last year. He's 6'3", probably close to 220 now. He's the quarterbacks call him the baby Calvin Johnson because he's got these huge hands, these big feet, and this big body that goes up and gets the ball. So I think he could be a first team all conference type of guy. I'm expecting the passing game to revolve around him, and I know opposing defenses are already starting to prepare for him because he's a big time player. He's a great find for the Bulls, and he will be the wide receiver one. I think I can say that without qualification. Two other guys that got a lot of experience last year: Jaquan Smith, who's really like a world class runner, also a track guy. His hands are suspect at times, but man, he can stretch the defense. He can get behind you, and he can create some problems. He can also do some damage on some end arounds. Joshua Porter is a guy that was a freshman last year that not a lot of people knew about. Comes from a small school in Polk County, not too far from the USF campus. Was not highly recruited, but man, he turned heads immediately with his ability to do things in practice and do what they tell him to do and run precise routes. And the coaches were like looking at each other like, "Wow, really? He's that good?" And he shocked everybody, and he produced a lot as a freshman. So again, this is a guy that knows how to play football, and I think he's going to have a good role on this team as well. Jaden Alexis is a guy that's coming back from injury that they love a lot. He's had a lot of injury problems, so they need him to stay healthy for sure. The guys you mentioned as transfers are really maybe the bottom line to how well this unit does, whether it can be a good unit or a great unit. Chaz Nimrod from Tennessee played a lot of football in the SEC. Alex Golish helped to recruit him. He's a guy that I think could start almost immediately. Showed a lot of good things in spring. And then the other two you mentioned, the transfers, Mudia Rubin from Stanford and Tyler Williams from Minnesota. I know Rubin is very highly regarded. He picked USF over some power schools, and I think the fans expect to see a lot from him. So the bottom line is, we've named a lot of names here, and all these guys could be maybe not the primary receiver, but guys that could play a lot and catch a lot of balls. So I'm looking at this wide receiver group thinking this might be the strength of the whole team.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, with Sean Atkins departing, that's 113 targets. And those 113 targets accounted for 34.5% of the wide receiving targets in 2024. Is there a one-for-one replacement for Sean's targets, or how do you see his production getting divvied up?
I don't know that there is. Sean Atkins was a special player. He was a former walk-on. He's a great story about how he turned out. A former walk-on that was nobody even knew who this kid was, and he ends up being the leading receiver in this history of the program. He had a special ability to get open and to just practice like nobody's business. So he'll be tough to replace. I mean, Keyshawn Singleton, I think, has a unique talent that could really put him above the group. But I also would like to think that these transfers, such as Nimrod, Rubin, and Williams, are going to bring a different edge because of their experience. When all's said and done, I'm looking at the stat sheet after the end of the USF 2025 season. I think Keyshawn Singleton will be at the top of the catch list. That's my feeling.
And I normally don't dig into the positional coaches, but this one caught my eye. Golish is entering, what is it, year 4 with the
year 3.
Year 3. Okay.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting that he brought in co-OC, assistant head coach, wide receivers coach, Cody Burns. He was there with him at Tennessee, but spent some time at New Orleans at the Saints, where was his last stop. What can you
Yeah.
tell us about Cody Burns?
Well, Cody Burns is really well known to the folks at Auburn. I mean, he came to Auburn as a quarterback, and then they had a guy that come there by the name of Cam Newton, and he saw, I don't know what you call it, saw the writing on the wall, but he endeared himself to everyone by saying, "Look, move me to receiver. It's better for the team. I love playing quarterback, but move me to receiver." So it did help the team. Now Auburn won a national title. Cody Burns scored a touchdown in the BCS championship game. Cam Newton won the Heisman. And a few months later, at the White House, Cody Burns handed a Auburn jersey to President Barack Obama. So he had quite a college career at Auburn, and he's had a very diverse college coaching career. He's been everywhere. He's been at Auburn and other places. Was in the NFL. Came across Alex Golish in at Tennessee. So when Cody Burns became available, he didn't hesitate. And Cody Burns, Golish says, Cody Burns is the guy that calms me down. I mean, Alex Golish is a very hyper, high energy, emotional coach. Cody Burns is very chill, very matter of fact, very low key. Doesn't mean he doesn't have emotion, but he keeps his emotions in check. And I think Alex Golish feels like Cody Burns, with his college playing experience, his NFL coaching experience, he's a guy that these receivers are really going to listen to, and they certainly have. They all rave about Cody Burns' ability to teach the game and to pass along the tricks of the trade that he's learned in the league and also at high level college football. So I think it's a great hire, and I think he's going to add a lot to the offense and the receivers specifically.
Well, moving over to the tight ends, if you were to describe how the tight ends are utilized in this offense to someone that's never caught a South Florida game, how would you describe it?
Not enough, really, not much at all. And it's interesting because Alex Golish cut his teeth as a tight ends coach at some of his former stops, and he talks about how he's a tight end guy. But other than Weston Wolf in 2023, we haven't seen a ton of production from the position. At times, it seems like the tight ends are underutilized. So we'll see if that changes this year. They do have some talent in that room, and we're going to see how it's utilized now. Weston Wolf missed all of last season with an injury, so having him back is like getting a new recruit. They've got Jonathan Eccles, who was a big time four-star prospect who we saw a little bit of, not a lot, assuming just a freshman thing, or just didn't pick it up enough and wasn't comfortable enough to make big contributions. So Jonathan Eccles on paper is certainly a guy that should produce a ton for this team. And there's also Evan Dangler, who they love as a blocker and who's shown the ability to catch the ball when needed. So it's not like they lack tight ends. Just for whatever reason, we just don't see them thrown to hardly at all.
You mentioned Weston Wolf missing last season. Does he look fully recovered from his injury and ready to go?
He does. He does. And that was a big loss last year. I remember in fall training camp, a lot of the coaches were very high on Weston Wolf being a big time tight end, taken it to another level. So when he was injured and he couldn't return, that was a gap in that offense that just was never really fully filled. So Weston Wolf was a big play guy in 2023. He started his career at Maryland. He's from the Tampa Bay area, Venice High School, a school that produces a lot of good players. So I expect if he's healthy, Weston Wolf will be a guy that will be high on that receiving chart as well.
Well, the offensive line graduated its left tackle, R.J. Perry, and then a guy that coaches were high on at one point, Andrew Kilfoyle, is off to Bowling Green. This line had to do some juggling in 2024 when right guard Zane Herring went down with an injury. So a plus going into 2025 has to be the versatility of this offensive line and knowing different positions. Plus the staff added Connor McLaughlin from Stanford and Thomas Schrader from App State. I feel pretty good about this unit heading into 2025. But what are your expectations for this room heading into the season?
Now that you mention it, I'm going to say this, receivers are O-line's 1A. I thought I didn't think about this fully, but offensive line is I have to feel at least equally as confident in that group as I do the receivers. They returned 5 guys who you classify as starters. They've got guys who've started 87 games in college, so the experience is everywhere, and this is a group that they expect to lead for sure. Cole Best took over at center last year from Mike Lofton, and that helped improve the line a lot. Mike Lofton was pretty banged up with injuries, and Lofton and Best will battle for the job. I expect Best to win it, but Lofton is a great backup and a great team guy, versatile guy. How they incorporate Schrader and McLaughlin at the tackle positions will be fascinating. Both of them, I think, were right tackles by profession. At least one of them will definitely be the left tackle. Not sure of which. I think either could do it. Maybe one's the left tackle, the other's the right tackle. Derek Bowman returns at right tackle, but he's got some competition now with Schrader and McLaughlin. So if you mix in the likes of Zane Herring and Jack Wiltie, Herring began at Florida State. Wiltie began at Colorado. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot to like, and I know they're happy with the young players they signed in recruiting. I don't know that any of them are going to come in and be a starter or be a huge contributor, but they feel like they've really gotten a good edge there in recruiting, and for sure, this unit with all its experience and quality depth is going to be a strength for sure.
So there's a lot of experience coming back, but who does this offensive line look to be like the leader of this line?
I think it would probably be Cole Best, the center, who's a really outgoing kid and a great leader who bided his time as a backup and a special teams player, and then got into the lineup and is a guy that obviously makes the calls at the center position. But I think he's got the personality that people love to follow. So he would be my choice for a leader. I think Jack Wiltie and Zane Herring a little bit more of a lead by example, quieter kind of guys. Maybe Bowman has a bit of a leader dog in him. Not sure about McLaughlin and Schrader just yet. So my vote for the leader of the pack here would be Cole Best.
Well, Joey, if you had to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who would that be?
Keyshawn Singleton, for sure. I know I've talked a lot about him already, but to me, he's a guy that's developing almost by the minute and borderline unguardable. Sometimes he got almost all of his receptions in the latter half of the season last year and made a remarkable diving pirouette catch on the last drive of regulation in the Hawaii Bowl that allowed them to kick the winning field goal. Without that catch, they don't tie the game and go into 5 overtimes. So he's a guy and he had a ton of big plays down the field. So we got like a small sampling of what he can produce. I expect him to be a guy that's going to have great stats. And again, I see him as a first team all conference type of receiver.
All right. Well, Joey, we just went at a fast pace there. We covered the whole offense. The offense is going to get a breather. Defense, go out to the field. Let's move over to the side of the ball. For those not familiar with the USF defensive scheme, how would you describe it?
It's generally like a 3-3-5 lineup. The linebackers are really the productive stars. They have had as a program a lot of trouble getting pressure on the quarterback, but that seemed to get a lot better last year. They actually ended up with really good stats for tackles for loss and sacks, and I think they turned a corner there. They've got a ton of athletes in the secondary, a lot of transfers and a lot of guys that they've isolated as people they want to produce for them on the backside. So, but it does start with the linebackers. They have not had great stats defensively the last couple of years under Todd Orlando. They've done some good things, but they've also let in far too many points in conference games. they've become one of those teams that either wins big or loses big. They haven't held out all close games, and particularly with the upper level teams that they're competing against. So that has to change, and I think the way they can clean that up is they've got to play better defense. They've got to hold teams down to a more respectable yardage total and point total, because some of these games have just gotten way out of hand, and I think their talent level suggests that they should be doing much better.
Well, let's move over to these defensive position groups and start with the more daddies up front along that defensive line. This group will miss Zacharias Hawthorne off the edge and Bernard Gooden on the interior. That duo accounted for 71 pressures, 4 sacks, and 21 tackles for loss a season ago. However, this room returns several guys who saw playing time in 2024. I love that this room returns on edge with guys like Rico Watson, Michael Williams II, and DJ Harris Jr. But I'm really curious about the interior of this line. Did anyone on the interior stand out for you in the spring?
Yeah, the new players, the transfers from the first transfer portal, that it looks like they were able to get some very valuable players. Josh Seliskar is going to play a lot for them. He could play on the edge, but could also play in the interior. He's a guy that played a lot at UCF, was a team captain, and went over to Texas A&M. Really didn't get much of a look there, and is back in the state now, and is a veteran guy. He's a mature guy. He's married. He has a kid, so he's going to lend a lot of leadership to this team. I would look also at Dre Butler, who's a transfer from Charlotte, a 6th-year, well-traveled player who was, I believe, the #1 recruit in JUCO when he came out of JUCO. So he's a guy that has a lot of stickers on his suitcase, and that raises your eyebrows to some degree. But the coaches say he's been a yes sir, no sir, do my assignment, do my work kind of guy. So he certainly has the girth. Jacob Merrifield is another guy that's new from Florida Atlantic that can play on the interior. So I think they've certainly got some depth, and then that doesn't mention a couple of other guys that you should look at, such as Denelson Exume and Jahari Grant. These are guys they recruited out of high school that can play on the interior that I think will give them some good choices. Jahari Grant, particularly, I remember seeing him with my own eyes, have some great moments in limited duty, and he caught my eye immediately. He's a guy that I think was a bit of a sleeper in recruiting from the Port St. Lucie area, and he's a big dude who can move the earth. And if he can continue to improve, I think Jahari Grant might be a guy that'll rise on the depth chart pretty quickly.
Given the departures, who should this room look towards to generate that pressure on the quarterback here in 2025?
I think we're looking at Rico Watson and Mike Williams, the returners. Also, don't overlook a young guy named Ira Singleton, who looks the part. He looks like a guy that's going to be in the pros one day. Now, he needs experience, but he is a guy that will get after you off the edge. Another guy that caught my eye a lot in limited duty. He makes his first play, and I'm like, who is that? And it's Ira Singleton. So I do think the Bulls have a lot of bodies up there. If they all live up to potential, I think the Bulls have a chance to really rise up in the ranks here and continue this trajectory that saw them be a not just a respectable but a very good team rushing the passer and getting guys behind the line of scrimmage.
If this room is a huge success in 2025, who do you think's responsible for that?
I think Josh Seliskar is a guy I'm looking at, not only for productivity but for leadership. And he'll be a 1-year guy, but I think he's the kind of cut that's going to come in here, and I think have guys listen to him, have guys follow his example. He's played at very high levels and been productive at high levels. To me, he's a guy that if he plays well, I think this unit is gonna hit a different level.
All right, Joe, you talked about this linebacking crew that has all the production. This group looks solid heading into the 2025 season as their leading tacklers from this room in 2024 return in 2025. You got Mac Harris and Jalen Schuler. However, depth might be an issue. I don't know, but you got guys like Jamie Petaway and DJ Gordon IV have graduated. How did this linebacking group look in the spring?
They look fine, and that's pretty much, you expect great things from Matt Karras and Jalen Schuler. Both of them have led the team in tackles each of the last 2 years. So they're both, and they're great friends. So it's really a great tandem. The two of them playing together. Mac Harris came into his own last year when Jalen Schuler missed some games with injury. Jalen Schuler was just a menace in 2023 after not playing too much at all the previous year for USF and Jeff Scott. So I feel really good about those two guys. Have some questions beyond that, but I do like Rodney Hill, a young player that was a high school recruit from Daytona Beach, a state champion. A little bit of an undersized guy, but a guy that'll just, one of those linebackers that is relentless and never stops. I think Rodney Hill's gonna force his way into the rotation somehow. And the young guys who I don't know a ton about, but Chavez Brown from North Texas, Derek McCormick from UCF, and Rocco Nickel from Kent State all have intriguing backgrounds. I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of those guys play a big role as well. Keep Jalen Schuler and Matt Karras healthy, and I think this unit will be just fine.
Well, moving over to the secondary, they have a lot returning from 2024, but they will look to replace some key guys like cornerback Brent Austin and safety Tafik Bayard. Couple that with couple of returning guys with 4 portal additions. What should we expect from this defensive backfield here in 2025?
Well, like you said, here's another unit with a lot of bodies, a lot of experience. It seems like there's a lot of mix and match possibilities here. I have a guy I really like named Tavin Ward, who's a safety, who is just as steady can be. A great quiet leader for them, a playmaker, really a guy that is sort of the barometer on the back end for getting that defense straight. Fred Gaskin is another guy at safety, a young guy that got some playing time as a freshman that I think could be a factor as well. Some real talent at cornerback, athletic talent, Deshaun Rucker, K'Wan Banks, Ben Knox. These are all familiar names to USF fans, but a guy you might want to look at cornerback is James Chenault, who had a really an outstanding freshman season last year, and I think he's a guy that could challenge for a lot of playing time, maybe even the start at cornerback. And beyond that, they've added some real depth in the transfer portal. A kid from Wisconsin, Jonas Duclona, Bugsy Silvera is another guy that they're going to look at very strongly, and some late additions, Isaiah Guy from Georgia State and Cedric Hawkins from UCF. Again, we've mentioned a lot of names. Tavin Ward, we know what he can do. Rucker, Banks, and Knox, we know what they can do. So they've got some veterans, but I think they've got some young guys that might be ready for some playing time and challenge these veterans. So I think the defensive backfield could be maybe the unit you want to watch in fall camp in terms of competition, because the Bulls may come out of camp with some starters that we didn't anticipate, because I think the talent is there for the young guys.
Is there a guy in particular you think's ready to take their game to the next level to kind of make a big jump from 2024 to 2025?
Yeah, I think that guy is James Chenault, who we mentioned getting some freshman playing time, who shows the look of a guy that could be a star, and we'll see if he can make that jump. But he's a guy that I think once he gets into the main lineup as a starter, I don't think he'll ever leave, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be a big time player. It's just a matter of whether he is willing and ready to make that leap. I think he is. So I really am going to watch him closely in fall camp, because I think he's going to be a guy that's going to produce a lot for this team.
All right, Joey, if you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'll stick with James Chenault. I don't think we can say Matt Karras and Jalen Schuler. We know what those guys can produce. The D lineman, kind of a veteran group for the most part. I think James Chenault is the guy that could go from, who is this guy again, to, hey, this guy's one of the best corners in the American. So again, if if you're looking to speculate on futures commodities, James Chenault might be a guy that you'd invest in. Just at least mentally, at least, maybe not with actual money, but I would put my chips on James Chenault any day.
Well, we've talked offense and defense. Let's move over to the special teams. How are those units looking, and are there any concerns as we head into 2025?
Well, the intriguing place kicker they have is Nico Grammatica, who is the son of Martin Grammatica, Pro Bowler with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the nephew of Bill Grammatica, another NFL player who kicked at USF, and the nephew of Santiago Grammatica, who also kicked at USF. And if you're not confused yet, there's a kid named Gaston Grammatica, the younger brother, has signed with USF. So it is definitely a family affair. Nico Grammatica made a name for himself with field goals of 58 and 51 yards in the game against Miami, the same game. And he also kicked a 52-yarder. So I know fans are extremely excited about him, not just because his name is Grammatica, but this kid can kick the ball a long way. I think the coaches want to see more consistency in practice from Nico. They know he can make the splash field goals, but they want to see him make the routine field goals, kick off effectively, and make extra points and all of that. But, kid kicks a 58-yard field goal, it's going to get your attention. So I'm expecting Nico Grammatica to be a real difference maker for the special teams unit this year.
I mean, that's what I guess it should be. Nico from coast to coast. You got Nico Alamueva over at UCLA. I know we're G5. You got Nico in Florida. He probably sees everybody with their Grammatica jerseys out walking the streets. He's like, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Yeah,
well,
kind of.
Joey, now that spring practice is over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into the season?
We said it already, but I'll say it again. Running back, this offense relies so much on moving the chains at running back and then mixing in the pass. So been a little bit spoiled with the great depth and experience they've had with the Joiners, Naquan Wrights, and Teron Keiths of the world. So could be wrong, but I need to see the depth. I need to see the productivity. So at this point, again, that's your question mark on this team. Do they have the goods at running back? If they don't, could be a big problem. But if they do, USF's offense could really be humming.
In today's age of NIL, revenue sharing, and the transfer portal, how have you seen it change South Florida's recruiting philosophy?
Well, it's changed everybody's recruiting philosophy, obviously, but USF is trying its best to stay ahead of the curve. It has established an NIL department, as have many schools actually, but they are trying to be proactive and aggressive. Like everybody, they have a budget. Can't pay everybody, but they can pay certain players. So the coaches seem pleased with the commitment so far. So I'm going to take my lead from them and say that USF is probably on the higher tier of G5s in terms of the way they're addressing the NIL. And I think, they've been able to go out and get the players they've needed, whether that's transfers or high school kids, and be able to address, the modern issue of compensating these players. So I think they're better than most in the G5. Let's put it that way.
And for those that might not be aware, we know the American has the $10 million commitment. I assume South Florida is geared up and ready for that.
Oh yeah, even higher than that. USF is saying, and again, we don't have the commitment of from the courts yet, and it's June, which wasn't supposed to happen. But USF is saying when and if, hopefully not if, but when the settlement is finalized and we enter the new world officially, that USF plans to be at the P4, 5, 6, whatever we're calling it, level, and compensate players to the maximum ability. Whether they can do that immediately, I'm not sure, but that is the way they're portraying it to the players. And they are of the mind that they're going to be as committed as any school in America.
With the P4 seeming to focus more so on the transfer portal, are you seeing South Florida kind of have access to a higher level of recruits than maybe they have had in the past?
Maybe. I think they've done a pretty good job in the state of identifying some guys that maybe might have gone to a P4 level. USF has a lot to offer. They're in Tampa. They have a great academic school. They play in a NFL stadium. They have an on-campus stadium on the way in 2027. And they play a pretty good brand of football, and they can send guys to the pros. They've sent a lot of guys to the pros in history of this program. So it's not like they lack things to sell. And I think with the changing landscape, they are able to get in there maybe in a different level to some of the high school guys, which is good because this program was founded on getting guys from Florida high school players, and so that has definitely continued under Alex Golish.
How do you feel like the staff at South Florida is doing navigating the portal?
I think pretty good. I think it's a group that knows how to build relationships, led by Alex Golish and his assistants. They are very thorough. They do their research exhaustively. They recruit to a culture. Obviously, they want talent, but if you're not the right kind of person, they're not going to take you. So I think actually they put a ton of work into it, and they have shown the ability so far to come up with some players that have been very very productive. And it's South Florida. I think is the kind of program that could be extremely appealing for a player from the Tampa Bay area or maybe the state of Florida as a whole that goes off to a P4, doesn't work out. South Florida is a great place to go to become a very active, productive, maybe even star player. It's been a great formula for USF through the years, and I think the transfer portal has made it even more so. And I would expect that to continue. That a lot of guys who are going to star for this team in 2025, they're going to be guys who are transfers who are specifically identified and accurately projected to fill those roles.
What do you think the main strength of this 2025 team will be?
I think moving the ball, scoring points, and that's really the way the program is designed. Is to wear you out, to get ahead, to play from ahead, and make you suffer. Now the defense has to do its part and keep the other team down in a lot of these games, but I do believe with a return to form of Byron Brown, there's enough skill position players and certainly a good offensive line in place where this team could be one that could be one of the higher scoring teams, not only in America, maybe the country. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, the schedule is a bit of a challenge, which we may want to cover at some point in this conversation. But in the American, I think the Bulls are going to be able to move the ball very well.
All right, Joey, you mentioned the future of an on-campus stadium. Currently, if I'm a student, I have to make my way south there on I-275. It's about a 20-minute drive. I don't know what it is on game day. I've driven in Florida just a couple times, and I don't know. It says 20 minutes, and it might take me more like 40. I don't know what game day is. So can you provide our listeners an update on this on-campus stadium?
Well, the USF on-campus stadium, which has long been a rumor and a goal and a ghost, really. Now it's reality. They are just about to break ground. They are hoping to open it to begin the 2027 season, which means if things stay on schedule, we have 2 more years at Raymond James Stadium. So the countdown is officially on. When the program began back in 1997, it opened at Tampa Stadium and then moved to Raymond James Stadium, which has held three Super Bowls. It's a really nice stadium with great amenities. It's a pro stadium, and they've tried to sell that the best they can. I mean, if you're a recruit and you're going to play at a pro stadium which has hosted Super Bowls, that can be a certain appeal to that. But the fact remains that it's missing that element of college football that we all hold dear of walking around the campus and getting out of your dorm room and walking to the game. And, so that has never been a part of the USF culture until now. And now it's finally going to be a reality. I think it's going to really help the program, for one thing, because the arrangement with the Buccaneers, who control that Raymond James Stadium, USF has left a ton of money on the table. I mean, they don't get concessions or parking or a lot of the things you get from a stadium. And now with it on campus, they will control those monies. So you'd like to think that will help their bottom line. And, it's a 35,000 seat stadium, which is probably pretty realistic for their level of play and the expectations of the fans. And maybe if they have a great season, it'll be a scarcity situation where people will scramble for tickets, and nothing wrong with that either. They do have the capability of getting bigger if needed, but let's settle into a 35,000 sellout pattern before we start getting bigger. But anyway, it's gonna be a whole new world, and I think it's gonna really benefit this program in a ton of ways. And obviously, I've grown up in Tampa and covered sports here my whole life and seen a lot of cool things. And USF opening its on campus stadium will be definitely a cool thing that I hope to be part of in a couple of years.
What does success look like for the South Florida Bulls here in 2025?
Well, success is defined by the same thing that we've been talking about for a long time, and that's winning a conference title. So here's the facts on that. Year 29 of the program, 0 conference titles. And we're talking about Conference USA. We're talking about the Big East and the American Athletic Conference. USF really has not threatened for a conference title. And by that, I mean been in the last game of the year to get into the title game or been in a title game. They've never had that, which seems odd because this is a program that has won at Florida State, won at Miami, beaten Clemson, beaten Auburn, beaten Notre Dame, West Virginia, Louisville. I mean, the splash victories of this program have been enormous, but they still have not raised that trophy. So that will always be the next goal until it happens. So to me, success is very clear. USF needs to win this conference title this year and raise that trophy. That is how you go to the next step. The Bulls open with Boise State in a great G5 matchup. They will then go to Florida and to Miami, and that is the first 3 games of the season. So that either, depending on your viewpoint, spells doom or opportunity. And I'm not sure which is which yet. Certainly, you can't deny there's a great opportunity if you're successful in those games to make a huge splash. But it's a great challenge to have a schedule like that. Boise State right away, and then at Florida, at Miami. If they go 3-0 or 0-3 or 2-1 or whatever, none of that's going to help them win a conference title. Those are not conference games. So the big question would be, okay, if things don't go well, do you have the type of team with the resolve to put that behind and move on to conference, or do you let it snowball and affect your season? So obviously, from USF's standpoint, they would like to think they can be successful, and that would be a great thing if they can get some wins in that early schedule. But I think the biggest thing is going to be the resilience of weathering that early schedule and how that translates into the conference season.
Is there a stretch in the conference portion that you think's critical for that success?
At Navy stands out. I'm going to just look at the schedule real quickly. I think, at Navy is the big game for me, November 15th, and that's a few weeks after at Memphis. And for that matter, at UAB on November 22nd. So down the stretch, I see 3 of the final 5 games on the road. So that probably figures as the most challenging stretch of the season. Memphis has been a nemesis. Navy was very good last year, as we all know, and they pretty much handled USF. So if USF can go up to Navy and square that up, which they did 2 years ago when Navy wasn't quite as good. But if USF can be in a position going into Annapolis and have success there, then that could be the ingredient they're looking for to making this AAC title more of a reality.
All right. So Joey, we've talked about special teams, offense, defense. Is there anything else that you want to share? I think we need to know about this 2025 South Florida Bulls football team.
It's just know that this is an ambitious program. It was once in the Big East, as you probably know. It had the ability to play in major bowl games and was considered a part of a major conference. It was, the Big East football broke up, and then the American has been a very good G5 league, but I think from the fans and maybe the administrator's standpoint, there's a clamoring to get back in the hunt for the major conference. So I think the biggest thing with USF, whether it's on the field or off the field, they want to be known as a program that's going to do everything at the highest level possible. That is the resume they want. That's the image they want. And all they have to do now is, I think, get to that conference title. And I think that could be the difference to, keep them at the highest levels. That's the one thing the program lacks. We've seen them with great victories. Now we need to see the trophy.
Well, Joey, we really want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure. And if you have a G5 Hive t-shirt, I'd welcome it. Just kidding. But I will be a fan and watch you guys and thank you for what you're doing, because you're giving a lot of great information on some programs that will really benefit from getting more exposure. So thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G55.